NFL is an absolute monster. No matter how much and how long you dominate, eventually defensive coordinators will have tried every iteration of every defense to slow you down. They'll stop at nothing, and if you sit back and keep doing what you do, they will catch up. In 2021, that's exactly what Patrick Mahomes found out the hard way. Despite still putting up good numbers, the Chiefs' offense struggled like they never have before in the Mahomes era, and there's one major reason why: defenses completely stopped blitzing him. They've never really blitzed him a ton, that number's always near the bottom of the league, but last year his blitz percentage plummeted all the way down to just 14.8, 40th in the league, nearly 50% lower than the 39th guy. In fact, Mahomes' 14.8 mark is the lowest since PFF started gathering data, which was all the way back in 2006. When defensive coordinators are not sending 5 or more defenders to blitz, that frees them up to do a lot of different things in coverage. So today we'll lay out what all of those things are and how the Chiefs countered them. When drawing X's and O's, defensive coordinators always have one guy who is their wild card. That defender can be a zoned-off linebacker sitting in the middle, can be a safety rotating down, dropping deep, doubling a receiver, or blitzing. When defenses use that wildcard defender to blitz, it heavily limits what you can do and makes it really challenging to play 2 high safeties, which we'll get to in a sec. Blitzing with 5 or more basically guarantees you have to play a 1 high safety coverage, so you can't protect deep, and throughout his career Mahomes has eaten 1 high coverages alive and has always been a destroyer of worlds against the blitz. When defenses bring the heat and keep just that 1 guy deep, you're really forced to guard each receiver one-on-one, and when Mahomes sees that, especially outside, well, that's why he's an absolute monster. So, the NFL said, well, screw that, let's just stop doing it and drop everybody deep. This allowed them to take that wildcard defender and drop him back to create 2 high safety looks to protect against the deeper elements of this offense. For years, Mahomes feasted on those 1 high safety coverages, which were the league norm for about a decade, but now he pretty much stopped seeing them. In Week 5, the Bills repeatedly dropped 2 deep safeties and blitzed them just 2 times on 54 attempts. The Chiefs love this Dino concept against 1 high safety coverages, where Tyreek Hill runs directly at the single high safety to hold him, and Demarcus Robinson runs a Dino route, which is really just a post-corner post. Cornerbacks in most 1 high coverages are outside leveraged, so once Robinson goes to the corner, he has no choice but to stay outside, and then voila. But when the Bills blitzed just 4% of the time and kept dropping these 2 deep, Dino was dead. This is more of a blend of Dino and a missile post concept, which has Kelce sitting underneath to hold this safety, and then Robinson running Dino to hit him over the top. But with defenses playing super soft and both safeties dropping super deep, we can see how teams were able to limit the Chiefs down the field and keep everything in front. The Chiefs faced 2 high safety coverages more than 40% in all but 2 games, and by playing that second guy deep, defenses pretty much neutralized the primary threat of this offense, Tyreek Hill's speed. With Hill unable to get open deep, Mahomes stopped throwing deep, throwing passes of 20+ yards just 10% of the time against 2 high coverages, which ranked 20th, and his early down air yards per attempt, meaning on average how far down the field the ball travels, was just 6.6, a number that slid down from 7.7 and 8.6 the 2 years prior. Defenses dropped 2 safeties deep and played super soft, daring the Chiefs to exclusively throw underneath, and it worked. But it's not like the NFL suddenly realized to suddenly start using 2 high coverages to stop the Chiefs this season. They have done it before, but in past years had to immediately trash that plan when Travis Kelce tore them to pieces. However, in 2021, he didn't. Defenses jammed Kelce at the line, which he couldn't beat, and they kept the second safety deep to nullify Hill's speed. Typically, Kelce was Mahomes' go-to when defenses focused on Hill, but he was just getting his ass kicked and wasn't getting open on time. After ranking 1st, 4th, and 2nd in the NFL in explosive plays, which are gains of 15 or more yards, the Chiefs fell all the way down to 21st. Dropping 2 safeties and playing soft didn't just limit their elite weapons, but also exposed a small hole in Mahomes' game. He's not very aggressive, at least statistically. Next Gen Stats' aggressiveness percentage defines an aggressive throw as any pass that has a defender within 1 yard of the receiver at the time of catch. Well, Mahomes has ranked bottom 4 in the league every year of his career, and last year was his lowest ever. When defenses sit back in coverage that forces the quarterback to stay in the pocket and throw into tight windows, and at times, neither of those have been Mahomes' strengths. The 27-3 loss to the Titans was the obvious low point of the season, and a game we can't say was the norm by any means, but did provide some clear examples of Mahomes getting out of whack, not being aggressive, and leaving the pocket when he shouldn't have. The Titans are playing a 4 deep quarters coverage with their 2 high safeties and 2 cornerbacks, and what you need to know about quarters coverage is anytime the safeties aren't gaining ground, post routes are an absolute quarters killer. The cornerback is leveraged outside to funnel that post route to his help, but when Kevin Byard isn't gaining depth, if Mahomes sat in the pocket and anticipated the coverage, this could very well be a touchdown, but he was super antsy all day long and kept leaving way too early before things could develop downfield. It's not necessarily a bad thing to not be aggressive. Throwing to open receivers is good, and also shows that Andy Reid is creating space and advantageous situations. But when defenses aren't blitzing and have tons of bodies in coverage, you need to attempt those tighter window throws since there's just less space to work with. Cover 2 man has some very specific rules for the defense where each defender plays inside leverage in a trail technique to funnel the receivers towards the 2 deep safeties. With 3 verticals and Kelce getting jammed at the line, there's not a lot of places for Mahomes to throw, but for those of you who watch this channel every week, my dudes, you know when a defender turns his back, thusly making him a nap defender, non-aggressive player, he can only guard the width of his shoulder pads. So that means the only throw to make here is to Hill running in between the safeties, but Mahomes attempts these throws way less than the average quarterback. Another advantage of not blitzing that 5th defender was that Mahomes couldn't really escape the pocket as easily since he had more eyes on him. This called for an adjustment on the defensive line to actually rush not as aggressively, which is kind of counterintuitive. Instead of trying to blow past the O-line and hit Mahomes as quickly as possible, defenses had their DNs run directly at the Chiefs tackles with power to hold Mahomes inside and so they could adjust laterally to his movement while sacrificing getting upfield as quickly. It wasn't easy for the Chiefs having to try and reconfigure their entire offense midway through the year, but after scoring 3 against the Titans, 13 against the Packers, 19 against the Cowboys, they slowly started figuring things out. Andy Reid dropped Tyreek's average depth of target to the lowest it's ever been. Typically, he's in the 12 to 14 yard range, but over the Chiefs' last 10 games, his ADOT was lower than 10 in 6 of them. Andy also started going under center more and using more heavy personnel looks by bringing in a second tight end. So by giving the defense more run looks, that kept him off balance a bit more and gave Mahomes better opportunities. I do think they'll use these type of heavier under center looks this upcoming season and watch how much it can affect safeties who can get pulled down, opening up the touchdown for Kelce. I also think creating more condensed formations instead of spreading everybody out like they have been could really help them, since defenses haven't been put in as much conflict and can kind of just sit back deep. If you're just rushing 4 and not blitzing, and are not worried about the run, you really can just sit there. But if the Chiefs condense the formation, more bodies equals more chaos, and an under-center play fake with guys flying every which direction will lead to more explosive plays that the Chiefs were lacking. This is a pretty spicy take incoming. Not quite Justin Herbert will bust spicy, but I think the Chiefs will actually be better without Tyreek. I think they got kind of caught up in trying to feature him a little too much, which, don't get me wrong, get Tyreek the ball, duh. But after defenses neutralized his speed with deep safeties, the Chiefs didn't have another viable threat to stretch coverages deep and kind of limited themselves by just throwing shallow crossers to him over and over. If you have to force the ball somewhere, you're not always going to be playing optimally, and I think with their new talent being a little more spread out over multiple players, plus factoring in the changes I mentioned a minute ago, the Chiefs will improve. If defenses keep playing this soft too-high coverage, well, let's just feed Juju and Kelsey in the intermediate areas and hopefully pound the rock better playing more under-center heavy tight end looks. And if defenses roll into one high to stop that, now we have Valdez-Scantling taking the top off and we're back to the deep overs. The Chiefs' run of embarrassing the entire league didn't by any means end this past season, but it certainly started to slow. Coordinators tried every possible variation of defense to present Mahomes with problems, and in 2021, it seemed like they finally found the best possible solution. But that's why this game is so great. Andy Reid tore up too-high coverages from 1999 to around 2010, when the league moved away from him, and his pencil is itching to get fired back up as we head towards Week 1. The NFL is a monster, but so are the Chiefs, and after this next round of adjustments, they will be ready.